Good afternoon and welcome back to Moneycontrol live stream. You're watching the closing bell. I'm Santosh Nair.
And I'm Yatin Mota.
Indices snapped a 3-session winning streak today with both the Nifty and BSE Sensex ending lower. Mid-cap shares were also under pressure, and it was mostly shares from the banking sector, IT, and as well as realty that took a beating and were among the underperformers of the day, whereas shares from the auto, pharma, FMCG and metal shares managed to hold ground. The India Volatility Index dropped by about 2 percentage points to 14.52, and among the prominent Nifty gainers today we had Hindalco, Nestle, Maruti, Bharti Airtel and ONGC, while among the prominent losers we had Adani Enterprises, IndusInd Bank, Kotak Bank, SBI and Asian Paints.
I think today was a very tough day for the markets, and the markets have been getting tougher by the day. There was a sudden fall. Obviously, there was a weekly expiry effect which happens every Thursday typically. But if you look at the Nifty Bank, Nifty, they are just very close to the support levels, and despite being at support levels every day, it's like a flattish kind of opening, and then suddenly when you open your screens at 3 p.m. you are at the day's low. So a typical market where the opening is flat to strong, and we end the day, probably at the day's low. So tough going for the markets, and obviously many stocks were in focus. The likes of Vedanta, obviously that stock was down 5% after a Bloomberg report suggested that the promoters want to sell 5% in order to take the last resorts to pay debt. And the bond markets globally have seen a lot of disruption, be it the Adani Group bonds or be it the Vedanta Group bonds. Thinly traded, but yes, there has been some issues of late. That stock was down 5%. HDFC Bank, Reliance Industries, ICICI Bank, all of these heavyweights were down over 1%. और सैंटो एक टफ मार्केट हो रहा है ट्रेडर्स के लिए भी नहीं, बट अगर हम इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए भी कहें तो पेशेंस पूरी तरीके से टेस्ट हो रहा है. और येस्टरडे जो 25 बेसिस पॉइंट्स की हाइक की हम लोग येस्टरडे बात कर रहे थे, वो यूएस मार्केट्स में आई. मार्केट स्टेबल था, बट जैसे ही येलेन मैम की स्पीच शुरू हुई, एक बड़ा नी जर्क रिएक्शन हमने यूएस मार्केट्स में देखा, और यूएस मार्केट्स ऑलमोस्ट 1.5% लोअर बंद हुए, और उसके इफेक्ट में आज पूरा का पूरा ग्लोबल मूड सेंटिमेंट काफ़ी वीकन हो चुका है.
Well, to be fair to Yellen, I think the first place the market misinterpreted what she had said, because she had made it very clear that similar moves would be warranted, which is kind of deposit protection if there were if some of the smaller institutions were facing a deposit run and there was a risk of contagion. So she had clearly qualified those that statement of hers. It was not a blanket protection for all depositors. So initially the market thought, and given the jittery sentiment, that clearly those remarks were quite soothing, but once she clarified her position, obviously it looks like really the morale was once again shattered. Well, with that, let's take a quick look at some of the stocks that caught our attention this afternoon, beginning with Maruti. Goldman Sachs has come out with a buy recommendation on the stock. Rather, it has retained its buy recommendation with a price target of 11,000 rupees. Maruti was also one of the prominent gainers in today's session, in an otherwise lackluster session. Now, the key arguments in favor of Maruti at this point in time, according to Goldman Sachs, is that the market right now is looking for one of the key triggers that the market is looking for is the response to the companies to be launched affordable SUV models, and so far Jimny and Fronx have got a very decent response over the last couple of weeks. That's one trigger. The other is also the EV platforms that Maruti is looking to develop in collaboration with its partner Toyota. With that said, Goldman Sachs has also listed quite a few negatives. One is that it's not a given at this point in time that the Maruti will be able to make a strong mark in the SUV segment, given that the competition there is quite strong. Besides that, with tighter safety norms coming into play, even the affordability of the small car is in question at this point in time. So there are quite a few concerns as well for Maruti, but for now clearly the stock has been having a fairly good run at the market.
True, and if you look at Maruti Suzuki, they will have an advantage moving ahead because ये सब कंपनियों ने एक प्राइस हाइक लिया है, और जिस हिसाब से पेट्रोल, डीजल, क्रूड, गैस और कमोडिटीज़ के दाम नीचे आ रहे हैं, एक टेलविंड ज़रूर रहता है मार्जिन्स पे. तो ये देखा जाएगा कैसे कंपनी अपने मार्जिन इंप्रूव करती है और कुछ ही दिनों में मंथली सेल्स आएंगे। गुड़ी पड़वा को सेल्स अच्छी थी। ऑब्वियसली कंपनी अपनी डिटेल्ड जो है सेल्स ब्रेकअप शेयर करेंगे इन्वेस्टर्स के साथ, बट कुछ ही दिनों में वो मंथली सेल्स फिगर आएगा तो हमको ये भी पता चलेगा कि पूरा मार्च का महीना कैसा रहा है ऑटो कंपनीज के लिए। सो इन जनरल अगर हम मारुति की बात करें तो ब्रोकरेज बुलिश हैं, सबका टारगेट जो है 10-12 हज़ार के आसपास का दिखाई पड़ रहा है। ये मारुति की बात हुई, लेकिन दूसरा स्टॉक जो आज फोकस पे रहा वो है HAL। और हिंदुस्तान एरोनॉटिक्स का आज ऑफर फॉर सेल जो है वो बंद हुआ। सक्सेसफुली सब्सक्रिप्शन कंपनी को मिलता हुआ दिखाई पड़ा। येस्टरडे गवर्नमेंट ने ये अनाउंस किया था कि दे विल सेल क्लोज टू 3.5% वाया ऑफर फॉर सेल। 2450 का बेस प्राइस रखा था, हालांकि अगर हम क्लोजिंग ट्रेड के आसपास देखें तो 2470 2475 के आसपास ये OFS सब्सक्रिप्शन में जाता हुआ दिखाई पड़ रहा है और एंटायर 3.5% की डिमांड गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को आई है। गवर्नमेंट विल गेट 2850 करोड़ यानी roughly 2800 crores they will take home via this OFS proceeds. But the important part is that in the May MSCI review, HAL is the most likely candidate according to the brokerages to be included. And if the HAL inclusion happens, especially after this OFS, since the public float increases after the OFS, a total of 1600 crores approximately worth of FII flows could be seen in the counter on the buy side. So obviously OFS was an overhang that got removed. And now the other trigger for the stock moving ahead in terms of institutional action would be the MSCI inclusion.
Clearly, and also if you see the defense story, which is largely about the strong order book, that story seems to be going pretty strong even at this point in time. But at the same time, there is clearly excess supply of shares in the short term. So if markets continue to retain their positive outlook on defense shares, then probably we should see HAL continuing to climb from these levels as well. The second stock on a watch list this afternoon is Interglobe Aviation. The stock managed to hold ground in an otherwise lackluster market. Now, with crude oil prices coming off a bit, that's clearly relief for not just Interglobe Aviation but also aviation companies in general, because fuel is about 50% of the operating expenses for an airline. But at the same time, there are quite a few negatives also for Interglobe Aviation. One of them it is that the promoter group has been steadily trimming its holding. One of the that the Gangwal group has been steadily cutting back on its holdings, and because of the steady flow of supply of shares there, the stock has been bit range bound. And secondly, competition is also picking up. If you look at the number of aircraft that has been ordered by Air India, clearly Air India is now turning out to be a major competitor to Indigo. So that is also something to be watched out for. But right now we are flying into the holiday season typically, which is good for airline companies, because that's also the time when they clock the maximum sales during the year. So that is one factor again to keep an eye out for, and that is what probably is at this point in time giving support to the stock price.
Absolutely, and low crude prices typically augur well for the aviation industry, because it forms a very large part of their operating cost, which is more than 50%. And yes, with crude prices coming down, and Maharashtra also in this budget cut the VAT on aviation turbine fuel, which is again a good thing for aviation companies, since Mumbai and Delhi are the busiest airports as far as Indian operations are concerned. So let's see how really the stock shapes up, especially with the fact that the Gangwal family has been slowly and steadily selling their shares in the open market, obviously to block deal route. The other stock on our focus list is TVS Motors. Today Jefferies has come out with a report stating buy on the stock with a target price of 1550. Obviously Jefferies sees a 50% kind of upside in the stock of TVS Motors, because when it comes to electric scooters, electric vehicles, TVS Motors has been doing quite well. In fact, अगर हम TVS Motors की इलेक्ट्रिक टू व्हीलर्स की बात करें तो नंबर 2 की पोजीशन पे कंपनी आके खड़ी हुई है। इनफैक्ट जो इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन रिस्क है वो टू व्हीलर्स में ज़्यादा है, और कहीं ना कहीं कंपनी की जो मार्केट लीडरशिप वहाँ दिखाई पड़ रही है, शायद इनके पास ये मार्केट शेयर अच्छी तरीके से बना रहेगा। और जो टू व्हीलर की जो टिपिकल पेट्रोल पे चलने वाले टू व्हीलर्स हैं, उनके एक्सपोर्ट्स में थोड़ा बहुत प्रेशर आया है, तो कहीं ना कहीं जो ग्रोथ आपको इलेक्ट्रिक टू व्हीलर्स में मिल रही है वो ये वीकनेस ऑफसेट कर रही है। तो शायद ये TVS मोटर्स को हेल्प करे अर्निंग्स के लिहाज से और मार्जिन्स के लिहाज से, तो ये स्टॉक को भी अपने रेडार पर रखें.
Also, TVS has been one of the better performing stocks in the two-wheeler pack, which in general have been struggling over the last 18 odd months, mainly because of weakness in the rural segment. Well, and with that, it's a wrap on this episode of Closing Bell. Thank you for watching.
जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
We'll be back with you again at 9 a.m. tomorrow.